Doors do not open on their own. Of course, these days, because of technology, there are some doors that open on their own because of what we call the motion sensors. And even that, you have to get closer for your body to be dictated for the door to open. In other instances, you have to use a key. In the same paradigm, we're talking about having a happy marriage and which need keys to open. And last week we were very blessed to have our own very Reverend Pastor Daniel Jenkins Uncle to be with us, and he started the keys. Actually, we started with 5 keys, and then he had to modify because there's one issue that is very, very important. That is the trust issue. So we started with understanding each other and then acceptance. This week we're going to go on to a very big one, very major one, the one that for most of us causes a lot of problems. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. Again, you are listening to Era One on your YouTube, Facebook, radio, wherever you want to listen to us. You are listening to us live. And so if you don't have the app, I will say again, go to the PlayStation or Google Store and upload or download whichever one it is on your phone, and you can hear wherever we are broadcasting. And so let me welcome my co-host. I told you I don't want to call him a guest anymore. My co-host, Reverend Daniel Uncle Jenkins. He is the head pastor of Revelation Temple in Beddingsville, Maryland. Uncle, you are welcome.
Thank you.
You look great with your goggles.
Yeah. I want to protect my eyes a little bit from the light.
That is good, of course. We want to have you alive for a long time to protect your eyes. And tonight, before we start, I want to do a quick shout out to, yesterday was International Women's Day, and we celebrated our women. I think Women's Day is not just one day, it's all throughout the year. So we celebrate them over and over again. And for anybody celebrating their marriage, wedding, anniversary, I want to give a shout out to you. Thank you for holding on. Thank you for using the skills of communication to, hold on to your marriage. And I want to dedicate a shout out to Reverend Joe Kwapon and Vicky Kwapon, who are celebrating their wedding anniversary this week. All right, this is Era One Radio, and there are a host of programs that we have throughout the day. We have gospel, and like I keep saying, this is a station where you live in the United States and you still can listen to gospels, rap, whatever music you want from Africa, just a blend. And Mondays through Friday mornings, we have the Yonsom program hosted by our own brother Kobe and Miss M. And then Saturday, the Sabbath train is hosted by our own Dr. Ostus. In the evening on Mondays, we have the Premier Finance Advisory Program where, you are educated on finance, how to actually save the money that God has helped you to obtain. And of course, Tuesday we have the Divine Connection. Thursday I come back in the evening with another continuation of the Divine Connection. And we have the Blessings, Devotion, Hope series in the evening. So for 24/7 on this program, you can have listen to something today that will see you after a hard day's work. All right, now let's jump into our program tonight. We finished understanding each other last week, and I think Pastor Jenkins also moved into acceptance. And we came out with the fact that men are rational human beings and women are emotional. So if you don't understand the way a woman lives or thinks, and you want to treat her like the way you are rational, things aren't going to be good in your house. And so he made that very clear. And so tonight we are going on to communication. What is communication? I put this from the Pastor Jenkins book. I'm sure he's getting ready to give us a sequel. So those of you who have been enjoying this free counseling, get ready. A sequel is coming that will bless. And he says that communication involves the use of every means available to convey to the other party all that is going on inside the individual. He goes on to say communication. He quoted some counsel as being the greatest potential to make or unmake marital relationship. Communication is the greatest potential. It has the potential to make or unmake every marital relationship. And he further says that the breakdown in communication has been the principal cause of marriage breaks in many homes. That is. And so tonight he's going to tell us the various forms of communication. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, so I'll let him say it himself. Uncle Bo, give us your opening remarks and then we can jump into our discussion.
Thank you very much. I want to salute all our listeners and pray that tonight they will hear some things that will encourage them to improve on their communication. I believe that if there is anything, any country spends much money to implement. It is how message information is transferred. We live in an information age, and there are many platforms, and the people who are making the most of money are people who are in the communication industry. So it shows how important communication is to life. I cannot imagine a world that we can live in without effective communication. So that is what we are doing. And we know that our lives as family people can never move an inch unless there is some form of communication going on, whether we have to eat, whether we have to rise, whether whatever we are doing involves communication. So that is what we are looking at this evening. I trust that God will help us to be able to bring out some few elements that will help, especially those of you who are married, to be able to effectively communicate and take your marriage and family life forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Jenkins. All right, so he said, those of you who are married, even those who are not married, please take advantage of this counseling session. Let me tell you something. Before my wife and I married in California, that was around 1999, I had just joined the military. So my marriage was quick, because I just come out of boot camp and I had to go back. And so our counseling session was just about 2 to 3 hours with Pastor Ricky in California. That is how much counseling we got for our own marriage, and the rest we have to figure it out. So those of you who are listening to Pastor Jenkins tonight, this is a free counseling session. Take your notepad and put down notes. It's going to help you. Thank you very much, Pastor Jenkins. So tonight I believe it's going to be fireworks. All right, we're going to go ahead with our communication. Pastor Jenkins, what are the forms of communication? Because I know communication is just not communication. I know just as love is just as 4-lettered word and very huge, communication is also a huge word and is the bedrock of most marriage. So please tell us the forms of communication. And then, as they will say in Ghana,
all right, thank you very much. I believe that when we talk about communication, it's the transfer of information from one point to the other. When it comes to human beings or in the setting of a home or family, we are talking about a husband and wife and how they transfer information from one to the other. But communication is not just speaking. There are two main forms. I have to make this very clear. There are two main forms of communication. It is either verbal communication or bodily communication. Communications that are made without any speech. So whether you like it or not, you are communicating something. Even when you are walking down the road, there is something you are communicating. And what is important about communication is that despite the fact that some information is going, what is very crucial is the spirit in which communication is done. It is the spirit in which communication is done. When you go down the street and you hear somebody who is angry and is causing violence, he's communicating something, and what he is communicating is that he is not happy in the inside. Now, when at any time people are not speaking, their words are even louder than any word that is being spoken. The reason is that when we sometimes look at people who are not speaking, sometimes we even think that they are wiser. They have something they are keeping which is very potent or very powerful, and they are keeping it to themselves because it is said that empty barrels make the most noise. And but effective communicators are those of the people who are able to communicate effectively and in a right spirit. When you convey message in the right spirit, information is received. People are blessed. People improve. People progress. Every good thing happens when communication is made effective. So I want to make this point that communication is a vital part of our our lives. Now, I want to say that when it comes to the couple, husband and wife, living their lives together, you see, human beings are very complex. The head we carry is opaque. You can't see through to know what a person is thinking or imagining. And so if we keep quiet, nothing gets moved. Nothing is done because nobody really knows what you want. Nobody knows your needs so he can fulfill it or not fulfill it. So if there is any aspect of the couple's life which needs to be developed and enhanced very, very much, it is in the area of communication. Now, what I want to right now talk about is that communication must have certain features. The individual who is communicating must ensure that his communication has certain significance, some things, some important points with it, in order that he will be understood. Because what sense does it make if you are communicating and you are not being understood? So if our communication will be understood, then it must be done with clarity. Mm-hmm. It must be done with clarity. When we talk of clarity, we are talking of exactness. There must be exactness about it. You have to be able to let people grasp the reason for which you are speaking and be able to bring them to the point where they understand fully what you are doing. I am a preacher, and one of the things I want to be very careful of doing in any message I bring to my people is, first of all, ask myself whether what I am going to be preached will come to the people or will go to the people with clarity. It must be clear. There must not be any adulteration. If you are saying yes, say yes. If you are saying no, say no. That is what we are encouraged by the Bible to do. So that is the first point. Then communication must be thorough. There are some people who start to communicate a thought, but are not able to carry it through. So their information is not thorough, it's not complete. They have left a lot of question marks on it because it was, first of all, not clear. Your thoughts will be thorough only when it is clear. So thoroughness is very important. If you are making a point, make sure that the point is made thoroughly, completely. Don't leave anything untouched if you will make people understand. Then I believe that an aspect of communication that makes it easy for people to follow us is simplicity. I don't believe that we have to always, be using proverbial terms to let people understand. Not everybody can understand proverbs, for instance. If you are communicating to your wife, I don't see the essence of it. You want to communicate a thought, and it must be done in simplicity, no big words. It doesn't help anybody.
Right. Pastor, just 1 minute. You mentioned big words. I've put in the chat a long sentence. When I went to Form 1 in the 1980s, Augustine's called Form 1. One of our friends, Kwame Minta, one day came to a class and he spewed out this English. I put in the chat. Anybody who can explain will get a prize. Whenever exaggerating with your inanimate companionship, companionship, it is your reconcility to be evaluated in the realistic way of formality. I will explain later, but I want our listeners to guess what it means. So, Pastor, I will just put in there because of the simplicity that you mentioned. So, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the humor. Yeah, but we know that there are some people who are either so learned that they don't know how to speak in simplicity, and even when we are talking about our local languages, from where I come from, Ghana, there are certain tribes, they can never complete any communication without a lot of proverbs. Those things, they have their relevance in communication only when the people you are talking to really can follow along and understand fully what you are coming to communicate. So what I'm saying, the point here is that if you are communicating a thing, let it be clear, let it be thorough, and do it with simplicity. There is a man who became a head of state of Ghana, and people liked him only because this man was a professor, but you must listen to his speeches and realize that a professor can speak in simple terms so that the person with the barest education can understand what he is communicating. And in the marriage union, it is very, very important that when you are speaking, communicating, talking to your wife, she must hear you in the simplicity of the terms you are using and not use jargon. Some people use jargons. If you come from where I come from, Takrady, for instance, we can speak to you with jargons a lot. If you don't come from Takrady, you wouldn't know or understand where we are coming from, But we are talking about we are talking about the marriage setting. And in the marriage setting, we are not thinking about a schoolmaster and his pupils. You are talking of two love birds, two people who love themselves, who want to make the most out of life, who wants to live in an atmosphere that is liberated. And therefore, you want to open your heart and speak in such a manner that your spouse will understand you. There is something in communication we call envelopes. Envelopes is basically, we know that an envelope is not just a paper that is folded, but what makes it an envelope is that it contains a letter. It contains a letter. So when we are talking about envelopes, we are talking of the packaging of the information you want to communicate. You want to package it. You see, if I want to tell a woman I love her, she can be angry with me based on the way I packaged it.
Exactly.
You can say I love you and can say I love you. Literally shout on the person like you are giving a command. If it is I love you, it is such a romantic kind of communication you are doing, and it must be done in a certain spirit. You have to package it. It is the kind of voice, the tonation, your face, your facial expression, and there are many things that come with it. And this is lacking in many relationships because people just speak up their mind, say that I publish and be damned. So they say it the way they feel, and that is it. Sometimes people like people like that, but when we are talking about communication that really moves things and gets things done, communication that are done in the right spirit, you want to make sure that you communicate whatever thought you want to put out there. So it is the spirit of the communication that must determine what envelope. I also believe that there is a lack in the way people communicate. It's not everybody who is a good communicator. We have to face it. It isn't that we don't want to, but we have not really learned how to converse. How to converse. You see, if you know women like conversation, and they don't like short forms of communication. Those in communication are called factual communication. No, they want a man that is a thriller, who can begin a subject and go ahead and talk and talk. If it is about, if a man wants to woo a woman, he must be able to focus on the woman like Solomon does. She just picks the woman from the head to the toe and gives a vivid description of how he feels about his wife's bodily parts. You get the idea. So conversation is something that needs to be done. People don't know how to converse either, and I don't know whether they don't know what to talk about, or they are at a loss in the relationship. But they only give commands, but don't converse. But anybody who is going to be a good communicator must be somebody who can let people feel like they are conversing. They are conversing. If you're a pastor, your message is going to make an impact on your congregation. It is to rope them in such a way that they feel like you are talking to them. You know where they are, and you are literally conversing with them. It is the secret of any teacher, especially if you had a teacher who taught you calculus and stuff like that, mathematics teacher that was able to convey, and teach you maths like he is conversing. It registers in your memory much more of the principles that you need to inculcate. So these are some of the points that I believe that needs to be taken into consideration when we are communicating. I have talked about clarity. I have talked about thoroughness. I have talked about simplicity. I have talked about envelopes. That means that the packaging of the information you want to send out there, and be able to develop the art of conversation. The art of conversation. These are, yes.
Oh, that was what I was coming at. So you mean to say communication is an art?
Yes, it's an art.
Wow.
It's not everybody who knows how to converse. In fact, and such people, do not know how to build a relationship. Because if I want to start any meaningful relationship, I must be able to converse with you, at least to have an idea of where you are, what you are doing, where you are coming from, your mission in life, etc. But if you don't know what to communicate, you can sit in a room with a person and behave almost like somebody who is dumb and deaf, not saying anything. And incidentally, I would dare say that some people live in their marriage not speaking at all. Somebody told me that as for women, they are too difficult. If you talk to a woman too much, that is when she brings a lot of needs. And you basically said, like a PR. I don't know, obi say on your queen be so no be so na na koto imam na nazi. They will not talk. Onye ni nkasa. Onye ni nkasa chede onye bibia odo oka. You must just say something that is very, very necessary. Other than that, he is there. And I think one of the things I have to chip in, we have to be very careful of all the gadgets we have of late. You see, you can be a husband and wife and get started with your cell phone, iPhone, and always, be going to Facebook, YouTube, and all the other platforms, listening to what people are saying, whilst you are not communicating anything. But if you are married, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about.
Pastor, we'll come there. We'll come to the strategies. We'll ask you to teach us the strategy. But let me go back to this question I have that some women think that their husbands don't talk enough. And like I'm just going back to the statement you made. That some of the women think their husbands don't talk enough. And the men also think their women talk too much. So how do we come to a common ground? I mean, a median, so to speak.
Yes. You see, I believe that this is my personal belief that why people come into relationship is, or one of the vehicles that people have used to enter relationship is friendship. And there cannot be any meaningful or constructive friendship when people did not converse. It has never happened. You know, it's the starting point of a relationship. So I'm wondering how after we have entered the relationship, we stop at some of the things that actually brought us into the relationship. And that is why many marriages are lacking. They could talk for hours. And when they came together and they lived in the same house, when there is so much to discuss, they kept mute. The men are not talking. There is nothing to laugh about, no jokes to share. You know, everything is become so rigid and so formal in the marriage. And when you do that to a relationship, besides the fact that you are killing the relationship, you put the woman at a more disadvantaged position because women have questions. They have questions. They want to know, you know. And so if you are a man and you are not going to communicate, let me tell you, if there's a man down the road who will always want to engage your wife in a conversation, that man can almost take your wife.
That is true.
You know, just seeing the woman down the road and begin to say nice things, the woman might reject for some time. But pretty very soon, the woman will be interested and start listening to the man because he has something to say. I believe that both husbands and wives must be well versed. I don't believe that a husband and a wife should live their lives together without conversing, talking about their own personal life, talking about their children, talking about their plans for the future, etc. You know, so it is true that women like to talk because it's their nature to talk. I have said that women are like tea kettle. If something is not right, they will boil in the inside and they will make some noise, you know. And men want to hide behind their masculinity and say that I'm a man, I don't talk too much. Marriage is for talkatives. You will spend much more time talking and deliberating issues than you can ever sleep with your partner.
Thank you very much, Pastor Jenkins. We are still on Era One Radio. In case you are listening to us, watching us from from YouTube, Facebook, you can call into 301-332-0597 and post any question, any suggestion. Pastor Jenkins is here to respond to any question. Pastor Jenkins, before we go into the non-verbal aspect of communication, there's this thing that we had when we were in school. We call it the POP, plaster of Paris. That was for the boys who couldn't open their mouth and gizzle the girls. You know, you meet a lady, you like her, you couldn't say anything. So some people, they were able to, by grace of God, some of us took lawyers. We had to hire lawyers who interceded and spoke for us to get a girl or to get a wife. And then we come into the marriage. And now it moves from POP to what I call the SOP, silence or Paris. So give us some tricks. I mean, in case any man is moved into the silence or Paris syndrome now, what are some of the things that can bring about communication in the marriage? What are some of the strategies that men can adopt, you know, just communication wise? I mean, some of the tricks, what to talk about, simple stuff in the home to have a conversation.
I believe that, you know, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. The ability of any couple who are living in the union of marriage and cultivating marriage in the right spirit, first of all, are friends. And when you are friends with somebody, you build commonality of thoughts and ideas and plans together. So if I'm going to talk about you and capture your attention, I must know the things that mean most to you, that matter to you, you know, and I bring that out. If I go to the hospital to visit a sick person, I have not gone there to go and discuss finances. The reason for going there is that the person is sick. And so if my visit is going to be relevant, it must major on the person's sickness, find out how the person is doing, show interest in the person, encourage the person. That is how that person will be blessed by your going. But if you go there and you pick up an issue completely outside of the need of the person, you will speak all right, but when you go, whilst even you are speaking, the person will think you are good riddance. You shouldn't be there, because you didn't come to meet any need of the person's life. That is, so when we are talking of the ability to converse, let's zero in on some interest the person has. If I am interested in football and I have a friend who is interested in football, the best way for me to begin a conversation is to bring up the latest match, and then we are talking about it. When it comes to the issue of your wife, women want a man who will zero in at them, talk about their ability, their beauty, talk about some of the things that they like about them, talk about children, talk about school, talk about the house itself, decorations, talk in terms of your future plans, discuss, mortgage, discuss insurance, life insurance, and things like that. These are things that women want to hear about. They want to know a man who has plans for his family. They don't want a man who is just sitting there, not talking about it. You don't know what plans he has. Everything is sitting in his head, But I must balance this a little bit. It is not only men who are found wanting when it comes to communication. We sometimes have men who are packed with a lot of information they want to unleash on their wives, and are very much more good communicators than women. But as a general rule, women love and have many topics to discuss. If you are a woman, show interest in your husband's job and ask questions about how he's moving ahead. Find out what he wants you do, so that he will be more interested in you. But talk about things that relate to the two of you, your home, your children, your jobs, and everything that promotes your health. Talk about those things, and you realize that you have so much. Look, I don't want to put myself out there, but after having married for all this time, listen, of late we have found out that we are talking so much, we can talk ourselves into the morning. We can talk ourselves until about 3 a.m. we are still conversing. We force ourselves to sleep. There is so much to talk about, but people are living in relationships without talking, and you don't know what plans they have. And when people do that, when there's no communication, it is like the statement in the Bible that says, where there is no knowledge, the people perish. Where there's no vision, the people perish. We should be able to formulate a vision together and be able to spearhead things together. You see, so when you want to see a marriage that is really functioning, it is the marriage that the two people have put themselves in the conversation room. They always are talking. They walk down the road, they are talking. You will always find that when they are eating, there's a conversation going on. If you want to inject life into your marriage, then be fond of conversation. Don't put your spouse off when he brings out a matter. There's so much to talk about politics, so much to talk about COVID, and the dangers that surround us. So these are the points that I want to make with regard to the question that you asked. Let's don't brand the women as talkatives. They are talkatives, but many of them bring ideas too. They bring ideas. They want to find out. Don't keep information from your wife because you think she will make demands. If you do that, you do that at your own risk and at your own peril. It should not be at all. Your lives progress. you make a lot of advances when you are a talking couple. I want to
Amen.
stop.
Thank you very much, Pastor. You've said a lot of stuff. I mean, these are very potent things to regurgitate. And like Pastor Jenkins was saying, married couples have to talk. If you are not ready to talk, then it means you're not ready to marry. Then just be single and just be in your own corner. But if you decide you are going to marry, then communication should be there, because whenever communication dies, the relationship also kind of dies. And you say what you mean and mean what you say. Pastor Jenkins, you've been talking about the verbal aspects. I want us to shift gear and go into the non-verbal aspect. But before we do, I put in the chat that whenever exaggerating with your inanimate companionship, it is your responsibility to verbatuate in the rhetoric way of formality. Anybody who answers in the chat gets a prize. Amen. All right, so we're going to non-verbal. Non-verbal, I believe, is something like, okay, I don't want to say anything. I mean, the way you look, you can just look at your wife and she will understand what it means. Or you can look at your wife in a way that will make her angry or whatever it is. But I want you to give us your textbook definition. What do you mean by non-verbal communication? The facial expression or the patterns that, a man can look at his wife without even saying anything or hearing anything and just understand what she's saying.
Yes, like you have said, when we're talking of non-verbal communication, it is communication that does not involve talking or language, but the person by his behavior is communicating a thing. And I'm telling you, if a man dwells with his wife according to knowledge, there is so much that the man can learn out of his wife's non-verbal communications. You see, let me tell you, a woman can decide to woo her husband not by inviting him straight to bed, but she will be able to present herself in such a way as to attract you. And every woman is blessed to be able to formulate those ideas, because most of the time, the traditional idea is that it is a man who must woo his wife into bed. But what about a woman when she needs her husband in bed? And a woman has a million ways of doing it. Can do it, that something is really happening with your wife. She needs you, And if a man is not skillful to see, he is like a blind man who is trying to find his way in the darkness. He is blind and trying to find his way in darkness. You get the idea. So when a woman is happy, she can convey it with her facial expression, with the way she does things. She can slam the door and do many things. Men do the same. Men do the same. And sometimes the most childish thing men can do is that they will eat outside and come home and pretend that they are not going to eat. Who cares? You are angry about something, so you're not going to eat your wife's food. That is childish, infantile attitude. And then some wait until everybody is asleep that they they themselves steal their way into the kitchen to find something to eat. I'm just trying to create some humor. But sometimes some of these things are not helpful at all. And but a trend maybe. And as for women, they are packed with many ways of letting you know that they are unhappy with you. And I want women to be forthcoming. Sometimes your wife wouldn't tell you exactly why she's so angry with you until you hold her. You want some romance or something, and that is when she, throws herself about and then begin to, but many times, yes, besides that, there are some biological things that might be going on in a woman's life that can let her have mood swings. I believe you know about mood swings, which are controlled by, certain chemicals in the body and their deficiency at any time of the month. So if we are talking about marriage, it is something that demands a lot of learning. If my wife begins to walk in a certain way, I know what she is communicating. And when she looks at me in a certain way, I know what it is.
Wow.
Yes. If we were at a meeting and we wanted to leave the meeting, we have a way of looking at each other. It means that the time is gone. We have to leave. We didn't tell anybody. In fact, we used to confuse our children. We developed a language for ourselves, it's some additions and subtractions to our local dialect. And the kids get confused. Sometimes they want to try to figure out what kind of language it is, but it is something we have formulated. And we laughed over it because nobody really understands what we are saying. It's the two of us, and this thing doesn't just happen. It is two people who are lovebirds who want to, have fun with themselves, even when it comes to the way they communicate, so they can keep everybody at bay. And they are the only two people who really matter in the world because they can speak a language of their own. Listen, if you want to know how powerful language communication is, look at what God did when mankind in Genesis was trying to build a tower that reaches the heavens. And God looked at them and said, hey, these people, they can do anything because they are one, So God confused their language. And if you go to Ghana, that little country, we have about 50 languages in that little country, So it shows that God gave us a language for effective communication so we can understand ourselves and be able to marshal our strength together and achieve our goal in life. So we don't have anything. Any marriage is getting into trouble. People have stopped talking. People have stopped talking. They behave. The way the woman will present the food has changed. The way she carried herself about. If she's a woman who will have a bath to come to bed, prepare herself and so on, she changed. Now she's not going to have a bath. She will come raw. She can come with a jeans pants or something. She has changed. She's not speaking, but her actions are louder than words. So these are some of the things that we have to observe and we have to change, because it is even children will communicate when they are in trouble, so somebody will come to their aid. And let us not use facial expressions to be the form, of communication when we are unhappy. When there are times when it's necessary, but I want to say that we must use every available means of communicating to our advantage. It gives us advantage. It puts us in control of everything of our own life because we are making our thoughts known. We are making our plans known. We can come to a place of understanding, and sometimes even when we need to agree, somebody said that we agree to disagree, disagree to agree. Just that we want to be able to forge ahead in life. But if we are not, we adopt the non-verbal style of communication, it's not helpful at all. It has a lot of destructive things with it. We don't have to encourage them. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Yeah. And I just want to go back to something I learned very, very early in my formative years, something called physiognomy. It has to do with the facial expression. I mean, if you look at somebody's face, you can tell whether the person is happy or sad. How can a husband, either with vice versa, how can a couple or one part of the relationship know that, okay, the face I'm looking at, this is a happy face, this is a sad face, what kind of face am I looking at, and whether they can make a conclusion as to kind of face they are looking, the way that face is being expressed.
Yeah. You see, the mystery of a relationship is that even if you lived with a person 24 hours, if you are a very intelligent person, you should have made a lot of observations that will help you to coexist effectively with that individual. So anybody who does not understand non-verbal expressions by the spouse is not learning. And incidentally, I want to submit that there are many people who are not learning. They are in love, but it's not with their heads. It's only with their feelings. And I don't believe that in this time and age, we have to live with our spouses instinctively. I believe we have to go beyond instinctive living. That is when you feel things. We have to be able to act on knowledge. And if you have observed each other very, very well, you should have known, a lot about your wife, that when her face changes, either some things are not going right with her. And if you are a loving husband, that is when you draw your wife together, call her into a corner. Hi, baby, I've observed that things aren't going well. Is there something I can do to help? Are you all right? Find out. Women want men who want to find out about their lives, who show interest in them. And it's vice versa. When your husband comes from the office, looks so tired, broken down, beaten down, try and find out, probably he's been fired. I know what's going on. You see, we must find out. We must ask questions. And that is what is going to help us. But with facial expression, particularly, if you know what your wife's face look like and what she's used to, the presentation of her face when everything is okay. When things change with her, of course, you should know, except if you are dumb. But if you are not, you should be that smart to know that some things are not right, and ask, and so you can find out, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And it doesn't really come very easily. It comes by people who are sometimes inquisitive, and be positively inquisitive to know the right things to do in order to be helpful to your spouse. Yes.
Amen. Thank you very much. We have another Ebo watching all the way from London, Harry Lindsay, our own. So three Ebos.
Hey, Harry.
Yeah, Harry Lindsay is watching all the way from London. Harry, hi to you. So, Pastor,
yes,
you've been talking about this, this Jesus, and I want us to drive home. I think we have only 11 minutes more. Maybe we can start this subtitle before we leave. Like I said, communication is a very broad area. So, effective speaking rules. I don't think you just open your mouth and say it. Like you said, there are things you can say to your wife or the husband. It has to be at the right time. It has to be at the right tone. So what are some of these speaking rules that we can put in our belts so that we don't just misfire? Of course, you're talking about, okay, talk to your wife. You just go, your wife is sitting or waiting for you. You just go and say anything. You take her out of the mood. What are the tricks? What are some of the speaking rules that we have to engage in marriage to make communication work effectively?
If I should quote directly from my book, I've said that we must be able to inculcate healthy interpretation. That is the ability to understand, perceive, people when they are talking. In fact, if you went into any classroom and you asked for the most brilliant of the people seated, they will tell you, and they point the person to you. It is basically because his understanding, the way he interprets the information he receives is positive. And that promotes his perception of the subject that is being taught. I don't know how you can effectively teach anybody, but I believe that it's kind of a quality that needs to be developed. We have to sometimes steady people to be able to interpret them precisely, to understand them. Yeah. The second thing is openness. You need to be an open person. You need to be open. You know, there are some people who are closed up. You really are not able to predict them at all. But I believe that when it comes to marriage union, we must cultivate openness. It is my ability to make my point clear without necessarily being offensive. You know, I am open about a thing, and it's because I want you to know that this is the way I feel about it, and I want maybe you to help me to be able to be a better person. You know, it's very, very important. Then there is also what I call appropriateness. Appropriateness means carefully choosing the form of communication to use at any time, whether to use verbal or non-verbal means. I give you an example of ourselves when we have gone to certain social gatherings. When it is time for us to go, we can look at each other in a way we didn't speak to anybody for anybody to hear us and imagine it, but we have determined that it is time for us to move, and we did it without communicating. It was our non-verbal way of communicating. But what is most important is that whether you use verbal or non-verbal communication, it must be appropriate. It must meet the need. It must be the need of the hour. You know, that is how people want to listen to us, because we talk about things that are personal. We talk about things that promote an individual's personality or well-being in life. People want to hear that. That is why there are some people who have mastered in that, and all they do is go around and encourage people in life. And we need more of those people. I believe that every couple must develop themselves to come to this point where their communication carries the element of appropriateness. You know, I want to also say that if we want to be appropriate, there are speaking rules. Speaking rules. One is choose the right time. Choose the right time. Sometimes it is not always, you know, locally we used to say, people used to say that if you have a problem and you hear and you know what, you know, and things like that. But sometimes if your husband is not a morning person, or he's very slow at picking himself up, and you all the time you want to talk about is the time you want to use to discuss issues is the early morning thing. It does not work here. So by wisdom, we should be able to have or to be able to develop a schedule where two of us are able to choose the time that is suitable for us and be able to. Then when we are talking, we must develop a pleasant tone. I don't believe that spouses must talk on top of their voices. A bird will hear it and carry the news to the king. So develop a pleasant tone. Then you must be positive. It is First Peter chapter 3, verse 10, which says that anybody who desires to see good days must hold his tongue from speaking guile. Guile is anything that is untrue, false, anything that does not bless. If you want to be a blessing in communication, you must be the man whose wife want to hear his voice, and the wife whose husband want to hear you speak, because you speak positively to each other. You encourage each other. After all, there will not be any fanfare anywhere to help you go on in life. You are the two people, and I don't know what prize you get for always talking negative about each other. If you want that, the devil will help you to see negative things and you heap that, and pretty very soon you will kill your relationship. Let's be positive in the way we, speak to each other, and then we might have to be very courteous. I know we used to have a book in Ghana called Courtesy for Boys and Girls. It is the ability for a person to show respect, when you are communicating, or know how to conduct yourself in order not to step on people's toes, etc. Sometimes things like please, pardon me, and those things are essential. It helps people to feel respected in the union of marriage, and it doesn't make you look small if you erred and your wife corrected you, or vice versa. You say, oh, please, I'm sorry, I will not do that. Mama can say the awesome there could say, oh, we on circle na oma butoyim. Could say on circle oma butoyim. So let's be courteous. Okay, whatever the matter is, show respect. Be sensitive to needs and feelings. Be sensitive to the way both of you feel about a matter, and that will should determine the way you handle things. Sometimes we are so insensitive, it is crazy. It is crazy. And the masam na mo akunu mo ne down na no peloka. On pedo okay yanku na listen, we're friending you about anything, and I don't believe that those things are really, really necessary. When it comes to marriage, it's two people trying to live their lives or fit their lives into the same mold. And it is not easy. It is not something you just come to. It is something you have to develop the principles and adopt principles that makes a relationship work. And one of it is how to master ourselves in communication. These things, I know that they sound very bookish, but practically they are the things that are needed in a marriage to make it work. I want to stop at this point. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I don't think we have any questions on the line, Dr. Also, to step off a minute. And to summarize what you just said, very, very important, that you have to choose the right time. You have to develop a pleasant tone. You have to be positive and be courteous. And it looks as if these days, it looks as if we don't hear the words like, oh, yes, dear, thank you, uncle, thank you, missing these days, but then we'll come back to it. Since you said it, we'll try to know my wife.
The truth is that when we're talking about matters of courtesy, especially for where we are, it kind of makes people feel that you are weak. You are not confident. But being overly confident in life too can be a very dangerous thing. I believe in confidence. The Bible says that we have to keep our confidence. But when a person, it is sometimes very difficult to deal with an overly confident person. I believe that sobriety is a factor. The humility, being empathetic in a relationship, are all good things that promotes. It has to do with character. You see, and character is not studied in any school. You can be so brilliant and lack a lot in character. Character building is an issue. It is what can give you permanence and establish you, and it is required in marriage too, in the area of communication.
Amen. This is the one and only Pastor Daniel Jenkins, original from Tadi, Rough. Thank you, Pastor, for. Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. Listeners. Oh, I guess thank you very much, listeners. If you join us tonight, we discuss the other aspect of the keys that open to a happy marriage, and tonight we dealt with communication. I mean, the ins and outs, that in a relationship you have to mean what you say and say what you mean. My wife keeps telling me, if she had a saw, she would break my head and find out what is in what I'm thinking about, because what I think, if you don't say it, nobody hears about it. So whatever you are thinking, please say it. And all the gizzards that you want to give to your wife or your husband, please don't keep it there, because for all you know, you don't know what you're thinking. That would make the relationship better. Don't keep it in your head. That's what I'm learning to do. If I have to say it, I will say so. Pastor Jenkins, once again, thank you for gracing our show. And I know you're coming back. And next week, we'll move on to, I don't know whether we finished communicators. Communicating is so broad.
We have not dealt with conflict resolution.
Okay, that's very important.
That is very, very important. We cannot finish talking about communication without making people aware that there are effective ways by which issues that come up, controversies, misgivings, etc., can be resolved amicably, those things. So we have to make time and discuss that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll come back and do the conflict, yeah, because I mean, it's not a very good thing when the wife goes to bed angry, the husband goes to bed angry, and both of them are on the same bed but angry with each other. It's not the right thing. Conflict has to be resolved before we go to. So we'll tackle that. So Pastor Jenkins, thank you very much. In case you've been listening to Arawan, this is Pastor Jenkins, the head pastor of Revelation Temple in Beddingsville, Maryland. Call us and we'll hook you up, because some of you need to some remedy in your marriage. But Jenkins, I think our time is far gone. I can't even ask you to do a closing remark, but please give us the closing prayer in 30 seconds and let's be gone. Thank you very much.
I want to say that don't close your lips. Whatever the situation is, whatever you feel, say it, but do it with respect. Do
Amen.
it lovingly, so that peace will reign. Thank
Amen.
you very much. Yes.
Amen. All right. Thank you very much. We'll see you here again next week. Next week, make a date and a time with us, and Pastor Jenkins will be here right here to give us more support. Thank you very much, Pastor. Have a good evening. And to our listeners, have a blessed evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.